I see you got the shark over there. You know the name of the shark on in Jaws? What his name is?
Orca?
No, no, Bruce the Shark. It's Bruce the Shark.
Oh, is it Bruce the Shark?
Yeah.
So how have you been?
I've been pretty good, thank you. Pretty good. You didn't probably know way back when, in the beginning of COVID, March of 2019, I got really sick.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really, really sick. But thankfully, over the course of time, I've done pretty well. But I'm considered one of those long haulers, so I'm still dealing with the long haul symptoms. Uh, but hey, happy to be here talking to you. Let me tell you, it has been a
Yeah.
fun ride, but I've seen a lot worse out there. Let me tell you. Yeah.
Now you were, like you said, one of the first ones that I knew personally to get COVID. When I heard that you had COVID, it was in the beginning. It was like when people were saying prayers and stuff when somebody had COVID, and it was heavy duty stuff. You had like the first wave. You had like the real COVID. You're like
Yeah,
an OG.
when I do things, I do it well. Let's put it that way. Yeah, how can I tell you? Yeah.
Yeah, and you said you have the lung symptoms. What kind of symptoms are still
Yeah.
with you?
Yeah, I get the long haul symptoms. I have a trachea constriction. I'm sorry, headaches, nausea. It hasn't been so bad in the last couple of months, the headaches and nausea. I could usually be able to time at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd get the chills and they go
Every
away a
day?
couple hours later. Yep, yep. 10 o'clock at night, I get the chills back again. 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd get headaches and nausea. Strange. Yeah.
Wow.
Ironically, my son gave it to me, and he's still dealing with the long haul of symptoms, different ones. And sometimes when he doesn't feel well, I don't feel well. It's so weird. How
It must be some kind of like that. That's crazy. Now, do a lot of people have this long haul COVID?
Oh, thousands and thousands, really. And a lot have it a lot worse. Thankfully, I guess mine relatively manageable, and it hasn't really affected me so much in my life. I mean, I push through a lot of times. Sometimes you have to. I do the C program, see how I feel. I don't feel so good. I lay back a little bit, but I try to keep focused. That's been the good thing about all the comedy stuff, because COVID itself is a two-phase thing as far as I'm concerned. The physical symptoms that you have, and also the mental side.
Right.
Emotionally, how am I dealing with all this stuff? So that's why comedy's really been helping out a lot.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's been 2 years, and I'm glad that the comedy is helping you with this stuff, because, I don't think you could ever get used to having the chills twice a day and headaches every day and all of these things. And did you get the vaccine? Did you try that?
Oh, absolutely. I guess you can handle the chills and the headaches if you're pregnant, maybe, but not, that's a different, because 9 months later, that's gone. You'll have other problems.
Well, that's long. That's a different long kind of COVID.
Exactly.
When you have kids, that's forever, and that's a headache every day. Yeah.
As I said, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you said about the vaccinations. Because when I got sick, my doctor right away did the antibody testing, and in the beginning, I was one of the highest antibody levels he's ever seen.
Damn. Yeah.
With those levels, I was probably the sexiest man in New York City.
Yeah, because you had such a bad case that your body built it up,
right,
and you're look, you're not a spring chicken. This is heavy when this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah. I just turned 66 years old.
God bless you, man. You look
closer to 70 to 60, and I'm happy about that. But it's interesting because my antibodies are very high. Now the question was, I went back to my doctor. I said, Doc, I still have the symptoms of long hauler. Should I get the vaccination? Because I was afraid if I got the vaccination, it would exacerbate my symptoms.
Right.
And he said, I don't know. I don't know. We don't have enough research. So he suggested I go to see somebody in the long hauler clinic. I believe it was Mount Sinai Hospital and also Stony Brook Hospital put together this clinic called the Long Haulers Clinic. So I went downtown to New York with my son to the Long Haulers Clinic, and essentially they couldn't give me answers either, because I was like a test study, and I don't blame them for that, because they don't know.
Right.
So long and the short of it, he said, there's nothing like your own antibodies, but there's so many variations in this and that. I strongly suggest you get the vaccination. So I got the vaccination. The first one, it wasn't so bad. I had some symptoms for a couple of days. Right. Then I got the second vaccination, and that wiped me out. I said, oh gosh, don't tell me I'm getting COVID again, because I was so sick for like 4 days.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So then, as you know, I'm sure you've been through tested and everything. Then they tested my antibodies again, and there's two types of antibodies. It's your natural immunity antibodies, and there were those that are built up through the vaccination. My natural antibodies still stayed very high, but the vaccination antibodies, they stopped counting after 2,500. And I had a
Wow.
2,500 plus, you know. So again, I was like Superman with that stuff. You know?
Well, that's a positive. And now, how are you when you go out to the comedy clubs? Are you like triple masked, or are you out there with no mask? And you're saying, F
Well,
the world.
I got
did.
I got the booster as well. You
Yeah.
know, I'm doing all the prudent stuff that I should be doing. But there comes a time where you say, hey, if I'm out in the real world, you know, you've got to take your mask off, you know, and then, you know, you've got to touch the microphone after somebody. You got to go to the bathroom and touch the handle of the door, you know, or the waiter comes by. I mean,
You got to
yes,
live. Yeah.
exactly. You got to live, but you got to be, as I say, try to be as prudent as possible. And the usual stuff. I don't have to tell you what to do with that, but you know, you mask up and then take your mask off again. But at the beginning, I wasn't doing live shows. You know, I was doing obviously a lot of Zoom shows. I was doing
Right.
podcasting. I was doing interviews and stuff. And I became like the Zoomologist, I call myself.
Yeah.
I've done so many Zoom shows, but I did start going back to live shows, trying to not selectively necessarily pick them, but you know, not be so crazy and do like, you know, 4 shows a week or 3 shows a week. Not that everybody was knocking down my door to do live shows that much, but they come in droves, you know. Sometimes I won't have a live show for a few weeks. All of a sudden I get 3 offers for a show.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And yeah.
No, there's a lot of work out there. You know, I remember, like you said, it's already been 2 years. Can you believe it? Since the COVID thing happened, you were on Pasusu, the game show, just before then, like that in 2019, I believe you were in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then yeah, and you were great on the show, you and Arnie Price, and you came back, you won, and you did another round. I forget who'd you go against, Mandy Jones?
Mandy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you rocked, and I always loved your comedy, and then the world got shut down, the show went on hiatus, and you, though, after the COVID incident, carried through, and you got right back on the horse of comedy. You were out there on all the Zoom shows. I watched a few of them with you on there. You were doing also, there was like new communities popped up, like there was like new groups of comics that were in the Zoom world that were getting together. The group you're in now, I feel like that one, you know, like you're in this group with Helene Witt, who I just spoke to last week, and I don't know if you were friends with Helene before this whole thing happened, but
Yeah. I
yeah.
was.
So
Yeah.
all these relationships and new relationships have built upon. So there is some positives that came out of the COVID. And now I think you've come out not only a stronger comedian, but a badass.
No brag, just fact, right?
Yeah.
That was interesting because you know you say that I had not just me, I had the opportunity and the pleasure and the honor of performing internationally. You know, from whether it's Japan, whether it's you know Malaysia, whether it's Australia, the UK, Scotland, Canada, and also across the USA. And I met so many great people, great comedians who become you know Zoom friends. And
Right.
hopefully, once things loosen up, maybe the world gets somewhat normal. You know, I have a lot of open invitations to perform around the world. I mean, again, when the time comes, which comes to shove, and I actually show up and say, "Oh, I don't know if I can put you on stage." You
Yeah.
know?
No, to me, yeah, you took a negative and made it into a positive. You took you didn't let COVID, you didn't let the pandemic, you didn't let the lockdown stop you from moving forward with your goals and your dreams of being a stand-up comedian. And that's got a lot of commend for that. You should be commended for that greatly. And a lot of people have done what you did, but yeah, man, what did you learn about stand-up throughout that time period? What did you focus mainly on? Writing, booking yourself, selling yourself? What?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because what it taught me, this whole pandemic thing, is I was never a social media person. And I'm probably not really a great social media person either. But somebody said, Bruce, you have a Facebook page, big deal. Where's your Facebook fan page? Fan page. You know,
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't know what that was. So I put together the fanfic. He said you should start self-promotion on there. And so I said, okay, how do I do that? So I had to figure, not that it's rocket science, but somebody who's never been exposed to that, it was a brand new game to me. Then somebody said, Bruce, do you have a website? Because a lot of times people would say, okay, I want to audition for your Zoom shows. You had to start auditioning for Zoom shows, especially if you're doing things in the UK and overseas, because they don't know who you are.
Right.
And
Right.
so I built a website. And on that website, what I started doing is saving all my posters from the shows. And I became very good at creating posters. I can do self-promotion. And so that led to a lot of different things. Then I said, that's a skill I developed. Maybe I can help other comedians. For example, if Don Sill is running a show, does Don Sill need a poster made? Get me the headshots, get me whatever it is, get me the information. I'll put it together. And then Don said, hey, you did a great job, Bruce. How would you like to be on my show? Or whoever the comedian is. And so a lot of times I didn't use that as the caveat of making those things.
Right. Yeah.
To say, Don, I'll do you a favor. You're a good guy, or whoever it may be. There's no attachment to this. And that kind of going to the next level. When live shows started happening, some of the people that I met saying, we're doing shows here and there. I said, do you need a poster? Yeah, great idea. How much do you charge? I said, I don't charge anything. It's my pleasure and honor to do that. And they said, well, by the way, if you want to get on the show, on the next show, just let me know. So I built a reputation that way as well, and trying to do the right thing. That's one of the things, it's not just comedy, but life, you try and do the right thing. And, if you do the right thing for people, you help people. Things expected after that.
It's the laws of attraction. You get what you give. You put out positive vibes, you help out others. Right. It comes back to you tenfold,
Absolutely. And it's interesting too, because what have you learned? Even the things like the Zoom show, you have to learn a different form of comedy. Think about it. If you're doing Zoom and you're performing in front of whatever the audience might be, it could be 4 people, it could be 40 people, but you only see 5 or 6 people on the top row, if that many. And half of them have their mics off, half of them are doing their nails, whatever it may be. So you're performing sort of to a dead space. And not only that, when you're performing, and I know you know the answers to this, is that there's a Zoom lag. There could be a 2 or 3 second lag on your punchline. Right. If I'm putting together a punchline and it's a really good punchline, I have to wait 2 or 3 seconds for the next that person to laugh. If I don't wait that time, and it's one of my strong punchlines, I'm going to step on punchlines. And then when you step on punchlines, you kind of, you lose out on the effect of the joke, because now they're still laughing and you're starting the next bit.
So it teaches you timing, and also to slow down your set, because a lot of comics, they'll get up on stage and they'll just run through it, especially if there's a smaller crowd and not getting like big laugh breaks or applause break. They're just going to keep rambling to the next and the next to avoid dead air, right? Exactly, but now with this is kind of like, I don't know if you saw the Karate Kid, but when he painted the fence and then he knew karate, this is like your Zoom taught you timing, taught you patience, taught you to wait.
Absolutely. And again, it's not always perfect, but the idea is still, you learned to, have a cadence to your jokes that may be a little bit different when you go live, which is an adjustment as well. But it's also interesting too, what I really try to do is also, on Zoom, you have the tendency, you can put your set in front of you. And I've seen a lot of comedians, or I've heard a lot of comedians put it right in front of them, and it's almost like, you're reading a story of these people. Right. I really tried not to do that. In the beginning, I did, because I wasn't feeling great. My memory wasn't as good. Right. But I really, really, really tried not to do that. And I tried doing what you do on stage. Maybe you have a little piece of paper that has, little buzzwords on it. Just one word that defines your bit and things like that. Yeah,
a lot of comics do that. Yeah, like they'll just have a little cheat sheet just with keywords in there. But I think that's great, and I think also too, your style of comedy is very old school 1-2 punch tag once, and I just love that, because there you definitely need a rhythm, and you definitely need a timing, and you definitely need an arc to it. It's all 1-2 punch type jokes, but if they all build on each other and then you do a callback at the end, I think you'll have a well-rounded thing. Plus, I love your delivery. You kind of got a little bit of a dry wit. I even love the tone of your voice when you're performing comedy. You have a lot of tools that are natural and to you and catered to you, and I think that's really good that you learned that kind of that timing through Zoom, and that you took advantage of the situation you were in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's interesting because oftentimes when people see me for the first time, it's like, oh, what's James Cromwell doing on the screen over here? And what's Ray Romano? I get the Ray Romano voice. I had somebody who put it in the chat one day. Bruce, you're a combination of James Cromwell with a Ray Romano voice, who's actually pretty funny. That's what he wrote to me. That was a great honor because, hey. But it's also, when you talk about my style, I like the Rodney Dangerfield style, the 1-2 punch and things like that. But sometimes that actually works against me. And that's one thing I did learn throughout this pandemic, and I'm still not perfect with it. I sometimes can get into a lull, almost predictable. Right. Punchline, punchline. And so if I'm doing a 20-minute set, and that's another great thing about Zoom. Zoom allowed me to expand my time on stage, if you want to call it that. It was 5 to 7 minute sets. There were some open mics that were doing 10, 15 minutes. I found mics that doing 20 minutes.
Right.
And I often found out that a lot of people didn't want to do 20-minute set on Zoom or just a 20-minute set at all. So again, I may be the only one who signed up for that mic, but I shared it with friends as well. Helene and I used to do these 20-minute sets. And sometimes you'd get feedback from the people running the mic. And there was never a question, thankfully, of my writing and my style. It was more of my predictability. He said, I was exhausted after 20 minutes. You were just banging jokes out. And he said, you must have been totally exhausted, So I talked to people about that, and they said, what you got to start doing is, just take a sip of water, take a little break, just to try and change the rhythm of the joke, because it gets too exhausting for the audience in a good way, but also in a bad way.
Do you ever watch other 1-2 type comics that like you said, Rodney? Do you ever watch Rodney, how he does a set? And that guy could do an hour and then sit down, like he could do like a great 8-minute set on Johnny Carson, sit down on the couch and do another like 15 minutes with Johnny. So like, but he has a rhythm also, but he breaks it up a little bit sometimes. Like he'll be like, my doctor, Dr. Vinny Boombots, who
exactly.
He is. And he'll like segue.
Exactly. Johnny, how's your health, Johnny? How's your health? Oh, no, Johnny, how's your health? No,
yeah, right.
My health. Don't tell me. I went to my new doctor, Vinny Boombots. I'll tell you,
Yeah. So you started doing stuff like that, like a little breaking it up.
I tried to. Yeah, it's right. I guess, it's all, I do reading and other stuff, and it's all about the reset of the joke. In other words, if you're on one particular, let's say I could be talking about my wife shopping on Amazon, but within that, there's different chunks of the set, or the bit that, they're the same patterns and stuff, but you've got to sort of bring it into it a little different way, so it's just an element that I'm trying to learn and get better at it. You don't want to jump from hopefully a good laugh right into something right away, because they may miss it.
Right.
Let's say I have a punchline. I use this thing with Amazon, and I talk about how, I have my boxes stacked up. I don't know if my wife is just a nonstop shopper, and I run from the front porch to the back porch, up and down. I'm like a personal delivery monkey. She calls me her Amazon primate. So I usually get a really good 1-2 laugh out of that. And then if I go right into something else and it's don't have a proper reset on that, I may be again stepping on what could have been a better laugh. And
have you ever thought to go back to some of the jokes that you're bigger, like the jokes that like the Amazon jokes that are going to work, and tag them, add another punch to them?
I mean, it's funny you say that, because I just the other day pulled up, and one of my things I got to get better at is organization. I have everything on Word documents, my comedy section of my Word files, but the way I name things, I have Amazon. I have Amazon 1. I got Amazon 2. I got Amazon Red, and all this other stuff. And it's like, I need to consolidate some of this stuff, where it's just pieces and parts. And yeah, but the answer is yes. The answer is yes. And it's something else, what's the law of diminishing return? After a while, yes, it's great. I love Joe DeVito, and I'm being honored that I'll be on stage with him on March 24th, I think it is, at Brokerage. He's headlining. I'm on that show.
Oh,
But he's like
nice.
he's like the tag master. I have such envy and respect for him because he can just do something. And 5 tags later, you're still laughing as hard as the punchline, and that's such a great skill. And I've been I don't want to use the word accused, but I've been told that sometimes I try to grab too much, and when you try to grab too much, if that next tag isn't at least as funny as the punchline, and it's almost like going downhill, 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 downhill. And that's sabotaging what could have been.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin the joke
Stuff.
with the tag. A lot of times you want the tag to be funnier than the original punchline.
Right.
So
Exactly.
and then there's Johnny Carson had the rule of 3. He said don't go more than 3 tags on that joke, because then it starts to get, then the audience, it gets old, they get over it. But
Right.
if you have like the primate joke and then you follow it up and be like, I don't know, follow up with something about, another monkey tag, like, that you got
Exactly.
monkey feet or something. And then tag it a third time and be like, oh, I might be a monkey, but she's the ass or something, like whatever. Right. And then boom,
Exactly.
then you close that joke, let them laugh, boom, go to the next thing, and that could also change up your when they say it's, predictable, your
Right.
rhythm, that now you're throwing everybody off because you,
And that's
and
the key.
you should save it would be cool too if you had a strong punchline, like let's say the primate thing, let's say that, and then you bring that, just the punchline back to its another joke towards the end of your set, so you call it back.
I actually have something there when I talk about, my concern over my wife. I think she's having an affair with the UPS guy. And I build that up, and the line I use is one of the lines I use. I say, because every time he comes over, she's always bragging about how big his package is. You know, and then I'll say something. Also, sometimes I get looked at as the old guy, a nice guy who's been hassled and he's worried about getting old. And he's got family issues, but sometimes you want to be a little bit more edgy. So when I started tagging that thing a little bit, I'd say, I'm always bragging about how big his package is. Then I'll say, I'm really concerned because now she's paying extra for backdoor delivery. And then I say, I know what Brown's doing for her, but what's he doing for me?
Yes, there you go.
And then somebody said, well, Bruce, are you talking about anal sex right now when you talk about backdoor delivery and Brown? What's he doing for me? And I said, no, I'm not. But it doesn't seem to be your persona necessarily. But I said, well, why? What's wrong with deviating a little bit? That's what shocks the people.
Let people. Sometimes they create their own narrative of the punchline. Let them do it their way, And
Exactly. So you're talking about the final tag. If I can do a set, and then I'll start talking about my wife being hassled, whatever the joke is. I'll say, my wife said to me, the other day, Bruce, every time I talk to you, you don't seem to be paying attention. Lots of hearing. I said, no, I got lots of listening. So I start going on in that, and then I'll have to say something, But after all this, I talk about my wife. We really have a fabulous relationship. We love doing things together. Nice dinners, Broadway shows, the UPS guy.
There you go. Nice.
Nice talking to you. So again, I try to bring that back, but I also have a dog joke where I bring the UPS guy in. Where I talk about, oh gosh, I got a dog. How the hell did I get a dog with restless leg syndrome? I never heard of this before. All night long, he's kicking its feet like this. I don't know if he's dreaming about kicking me or the UPS guy out of the,
That's great. That's great. I'm going to change my background. You see my background? Okay. This is my work job background. I had this on the whole time, but it's okay.
What's the football part for? Yeah.
I do videos. It's a production company, and we also do stuff for apps and phones and stuff.
Gotcha.
So let me put on my normal background. That was the first time I ever did that, but it's all good.
I love it. So yeah. I see you got the shark over there. You know the name of the shark in Jaws? What his name is?
Orca?
No, Bruce the Shark. It's Bruce the Shark.
Oh, is it Bruce the Shark?
Yeah. If you've ever gone to Disney, You know, the shark comes out. That's Bruce the Shark. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I wanted to also ask you a few questions to see if like to get to know you a little bit
Of course.
more because I've interviewed you a few times. We always talk comedy. It's always great talking comedy with you. I love it. I think you're a really great comedian. Um, but like we don't know the Bruce Lipsky before the comedy. So
Mhm.
like, and now we know you're a badass. You overcame COVID. You have like, you know, like you fight off every year these the chills every day at 4 o'clock. But like, so when you were young, were you like when you were like a teenager, early 20s type of guy? Were you a badass dude? You got like, do you have any tattoos?
No tattoos, no tattoos. I was happy I still had hair. I started losing my hair at age 25. Yeah, yeah. I was one of those quiet kids, didn't have as much confidence in myself. Uh, but I always had a ton of friends. I always seemed to gravitate towards friends. I was always a funny guy. Sometimes the humor I could maybe take against myself, self-deprecating humor. But at the same point, I still had a lot of friends. And I think I really blossomed when I was late in high school, when I got a job in a restaurant. And the job I got in the restaurant was a place called the Steak Loft. The Steak Loft was actually started by Steve Rubell, Studio 54 fame,
Oh,
before he
really?
actually, before he actually opened it up. And this was a unique restaurant, had one of these huge salad bars, and it was great food. And I was a busboy, then I became a waiter. And when I became a waiter, I really developed out on my sense of humor. Because I can be sarcastic, but I have a very, uh, good ability to take a situation and turn a word around, wordplay and things like that, and just make people laugh at the drop of a dime. And it was great for waiting on tables because you make a lot of more money. I used to get people asking for me. So I really think I developed as a much more mature when I was waiting on tables because I got to interface with a lot of people. And plus I met a lot of people as waiters and friends, and we got to do things together in groups and stuff. And plus the whole Studio 54 thing, not that I hung out at Studio 54, I had the opportunity to, but I didn't want to get into what a lot of people got into in those places.
Did you ever
So
meet him?
absolutely, absolutely,
What was he
absolutely.
like? How was your relation? What was your relationship like with him?
He was a quiet guy, actually, very quiet guy. He'd be hanging out in the corner of the restaurant in a brown bomber jacket. He was a short guy, and he'd always be looking around, things like that. But he had other ambitions eventually to do bigger and better. And I remember a lot of times he had his family would have like, not what like parties like sweet 16s, like mitzvah thing, or whatever it may be. And they would do some of the parties in the restaurant. And they'd always ask for me to be their waiter.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So again, it was a nice relationship. But again, it
Did-
wasn't I think I'd be hanging out with him. But he did ask me if I wanted to work at Studio 54, and I turned it down. But I did work at his other discotheque. It was called the Enchanted Gardens. It was in Queens.
oh yeah, you
I,
worked there?
I lived in Queens. It was right by the Deepdale, the Douglas and Golf. Yeah, right there. And so they converted this big house into the discotheque. And I worked there for a few nights, and I didn't like it at all because I mean, I can bust a move, but
So it was getting a little wild. Like it
oh
was.
yeah,
I
oh
mean,
yeah.
this is
Like
like
I
the
said,
'70s.
I saw a lot of people get involved with drugs and alcohol, and I saw some really smart kids get ruined that way. So
Yeah, man. It could destroy the drugs. It ruined his life, right? Steve.
exactly, unfortunately, it's unfortunate it did. But as I got more mature, I actually my career. I originally I wanted to be a veterinarian. I love animals, and I decided that I was going to go upstate to agricultural and technical school and see if I actually liked being. And I wound up in a place where I was 17. I was away from home because I skipped the grade. I skipped eighth grade. I had the SP program in the city, and when I college there, I was immature. I wasn't studying the way I should, and I felt out of my element. I was in farm country, and I was doing things with sheep and cows and stuff like that, and I had no experience. And I realized after that year that I wasn't getting the grades to actually get into veterinary school. So I came back home and I took a year off. Then I figured I got to do something. And so a friend of mine and I were talking about this, and we decided, we like phys ed, like activity, exercise. So why don't we enroll in Queens College in their phys ed program? So we did that, and I excelled there. Then I got my master's there, and eventually I taught as an adjunct there. But my main focus was I got into a new industry. It's called corporate fitness, where we were actually I was managing on-site corporate fitness programs. And
Wow.
I got hired while I was an intern at college at Mobile Oil Corporation and a couple other places, the Athletic Club, and eventually Chase Manhattan Bank. And Chase had one of the premier programs. So I worked there while I was going to school. And my last semester of my master's was 1981. I got a call from the director of the program and said, Bruce, how would you like a job here? And I said, don't know, you're kidding me. He says, I'm leaving. The person under me is going to take over, and I'd love to have you here. You work for us, you know the program. So I got hired there in 1981, even though I started working there in 1980. Fast forward 25 years, I actually became the director of all their programming earlier than that. And I expanded our fitness center from 1 to 14 around the
Wow.
country. I was traveling around the country, you know. But I also, you know, I talk about, you know, the COVID situation, but I also was downtown when 9/11 hit because my building was 2 blocks away from the Trade Center, you know, so I was sort of involved in that. Thankfully, not as involved as a lot of other people, but I went through that whole process there.
Were
And I
you
went,
there the day it went down?
yep, yep.
Where
I
were
was there.
you? Did you like run through the streets
When
and
the
all that
first
stuff?
when the first building got hit, I was in the subway. But when the first building fell, I was in my office. And I mean, yeah, and then, you know, and that obviously the chain of events after that, you know, we don't have to describe it. Yeah,
I
but
remember when they locked the city down too. So to get out of there, you had to walk, right? You
I
had to
walked
like,
over I walked over the Manhattan Bridge. We had a facility in Brooklyn, what they call Metrotech area. So I walked. If I was covered with all this white crap and everything, you know, I felt sick
wow.
for like 6 months or so. You know, spitting up crap. I mean, not to be gross or anything.
No,
But anyway, so after that, with all the mergers and acquisitions, we acquired new buildings and things, and we were expanding. We expanded out to San Francisco, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Delaware, you know, just other places. I was fortunate enough to be in charge of all the programming. And so I got to design, build, and staff all these things, and I used to travel around a lot. That was the good news. So I remember it was November of '08, '06, sorry, '08, wait. Okay, November of '08. And we had, let me take '06, 15, I'm sorry, '06, I'm sorry, I think that '06, November of '06, I went into a senior management meeting. And it was in Jersey City. And I saw at the management meeting, it was like really senior people there. And on the phone was my boss, who was the medical director. And the woman was looking down and said, Bruce, I just want to let you know, we're eliminating. I said, well, are you eliminating some small programs? He said, no, we're eliminating the whole program.
oh man.
And I had all my managers flying in for a big budget meeting.
Oh man.
And 6 months prior to that, they were looking at outsourcing the program, and we won that battle. So this was this whole crap here. So I thought I was getting a diversity award or my 25th anniversary grandfather clock. Instead, I got my clock cleaned. And they eliminated the whole program. This was November. And I said, well, when are we shutting down? She said, December 31st.
Wow.
I had to lay
Yeah.
off all my people. I had like 50 something people reporting to me. And then, of course, I lost my job. I got to stick around till January 31st. I had a month where I was like a man without a country.
That's
Basically,
rough.
but I had to shut down the programming. And then basically, they said, if you don't do it properly, you're not getting severance pay. They paid me very well to leave. But here's the situation. I had just turned 50, 25 years of service. So I got to retire on paper. I was too young for that. So I wound up getting a job. I left January 31st of '06. And I had a job waiting for me February 1st of '06. But half the pay. But I had provisos for if I did right, I'd make it up on the back end. So I was there for 3 years, and then they sold that business out. 2 months after that, I got hurt in the automobile accident. I got
Oh
seriously
wow.
in the accident. So I got part of my spine crushed in the
Oh my
accident.
God.
Yeah, you probably saw me with the cane, but if you don't
Yeah, that's
remember,
right.
yeah. So I was on the Southern State Parkway, and I was the third car of a small accident. Then I got rear-ended full speed. So I became like the ham in the middle of the sandwich. You
Oh,
know,
damn.
yeah, it's not part of my spine. I was a medical miracle that I had no operation and no hospital stay.
Wow.
And I just maybe because my core was strong, but literally, I remember my brother was a physician. Uh, he had some of his team of people looking at overseeing my case, and I remember going into one of the doctor's offices. She was a DO, doctor of osteopathy, and she's sitting across from me, and she has tears in her eyes, and she's looking at me. She says, "Bruce, you're the luckiest man in the world." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You may not feel this. I'm looking at this. You shouldn't be alive." She said, "If anything, you should be in a wheelchair with a bag on." You remember Teddy Pendergrass, the accident he had?
Yeah, yeah.
I had a similar injury there, and among other things, and she started crying, and I started crying,
Wow.
because you don't know how lucky you are. And I'm literally, I mean, to this day, it's like, it's a gift that keeps on giving. I still have issues with it, but every day is rehab. I'm on the treadmill every day. I'm like 3 miles plus. I'm doing this and that. And so I try and keep myself as good a shape as possible. I'm doing weight training. But when I got hurt at first, I was doing physical therapy. Then I started my own therapy because I was in the exercise industry. I was teaching this stuff.
Right,
I knew
right.
enough for my body, and I slowly I built up that. And I was able to continue that along the way. So yeah, that was some challenging times. You think about it, the 9/11, the accident, COVID, but that's life. Oh, that's
You're
life.
like you ever see Forrest Gump, how he goes
Oh
through
yeah.
life and all
Oh
these,
yeah.
you're like the Forrest Gump where all the, like, you handle all the
Right.
hardships of things and you
Yeah.
get through it though, but you get through it because
Yeah, you
a
can't
good,
give up. You
you,
can't give up. That's what think about COVID. I don't want to keep harping on COVID so much. When people first got COVID wanted you to crawl into a ball and die, basically.
yeah,
Give up.
it's
And
hard to fight through that. Yeah.
yeah. You're feeling awful. And I felt bad sometimes too, because emotionally there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's really difficult to plow through sometimes that stuff. But at the same point, if you do crawl up and crawl up into a ball and give up, what are you accomplishing there? Really some it's a little here and there.
I think it's when I'm hearing your story and everything you've been through, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Um, I think it's inspiring that you've kept it going. I think that comedy helped you find the light, so to speak. What would you say to other people that are facing similar challenges in their life? How would you motivate them? Do you have any words of wisdom for someone like that?
That's a great question. I think it is, you've got to look for little wins. Life may suck at times, but not everything about your life sucks. And I think if you can focus on something that there is some positivity there, at least work on that a little bit. Yeah. Hey, I wake up every day the same as everybody else. My back hurts, this thing, this. I have family issues. I got this and that. We all have the same problem. We're all different. We're all the same. Maybe there's degrees of it that some people have it a little worse than others, but in one way or the other, we all somehow have an interaction with people, family, good, bad, or indifferent. Find something positive that you can hold on to. So you feel like you're moving forward. Always try and feel you're moving forward. Even if it's a little step. I think that's very important. Doesn't mean there are days you feel sorry for yourself and bad and say, this is not a good day. Maybe I'll just get back a little bit and accept the fact that it's not a good day. Sometimes you have to accept where you are, and acceptance is tough. Let's face it. I'm not Robert Redford. I used to get made fun of. I have a big nose. I've been told that. People make fun of it. But sometimes I use it to my advantage. I'm
Yeah.
talking about normal times. Not talking about that other stuff. But the idea is, what I'm saying is that, again, I got made fun of. Do I like it? No. But hey, that's the way it is. We can't change who you are. You can change the way you think. And oftentimes I get people calling me, comedian friends who are just looking for some advice. Sometimes I'm the VOR, the voice of reason. Sometimes, yeah. So I try and put things into perspective. But look, my life ain't perfect. I'll tell you that right off the top. I accept that sometimes. Where some days, hey, I talk a lot about my relationship with my wife and on comedy and things like that. And a lot of it's totally opposite of really what's happened,
Right.
but find ways of playing with this that hopefully are funny and hopefully not too insulting to her.
I think you're absolutely right. I think everything you said was just great, and appreciate those words of wisdom from you. I do think that it is all about the mindset. I think it's the way you think about yourself and about life, and how you can get through rough scenarios and rough situations. And I think that's, some people have that kind of that comedy wired brain where they could find the funny in these tragic moments and stuff, and that strengthens you. And if you don't have that kind of mind, you could watch a comedian or watch a movie or watch and get your head right that way. But what you can't do is give into it. You can't surrender. And I think and I think that's how you were able to get through all these tough times, whether it's the automobile accidents, COVID, getting, laid off at 50 from a great job. A lot of people, that would have been it. They would have caved in, they would have gone soft or whatever, but it strengthened you to find new opportunities, new quests, reinvent yourself. And despite your nose, you still were able to get the chick. So
the good news, I put my nose into everything.
Yeah.
So that's a good
There you go.
It leads the way. What can I say? But it's interesting too. But you also have to think about it. I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist at all, but it's also, you got to understand too, that feeling down or feeling hurt is probably the right feeling at that time. And so it's acceptable in some ways. If you bask in that stuff and just let that fester and fester, that's not the healthy side. But if I'm angry for some reason, I'm angry because there's a reason. I can't suppress that. Hey, my wife never has any problem suppressing her anger. Let's put it down. We have a pretty good balance. And then there's sometimes I can get my voice higher, and she knows that if I raise my voice to a point, she knows there's something definitely wrong. But I'm a giver, I'm a giver by nature, and maybe maybe too much at times. Maybe I'm an enabler at times. But again, that's my personality. But I like to get back sometimes. But sometimes, I'm funny about that. As I said, I'd rather give than get.
Yeah.
And I like getting compliments, but sometimes I don't know how to take in the compliments as well as I probably should. And
Yeah.
I've been told that many times. I said, Bruce, we just gave you a compliment. Take it in. Take it in.
Yeah, enjoy the moment.
Exactly.
It's tough. I have a problem. I have a hard time with compliments also for some reason. I don't know what it is. What do you think that means about people like us that can't really take a compliment? Do you think we don't believe it ourselves, or do you think?
By the way, you're doing a great job. I think it has to do with example. Sometimes somebody will say, Bruce, what a great set you had. And I'll say, oh, yeah. Not that I could have done better, but it's the attention. Sometimes you don't want that attention going to the limelight. You want to hear it on one hand because you worked hard to get to that point. On the other hand, you just kind of say, well, yeah, it's great. Oh, is it bragging? Okay, is it bragging? If I'm not like that. I don't know. Just who I am. I don't know what to say. I like hearing the compliments. I like being told good things.
That you're doing. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, shucks, it was nothing, that's natural. I can do that anytime. Yeah. But let me remind you, you are doing a great job.
And you're awesome too.
You're only saying that. You don't really mean it.
So you've been doing comedy now for how long now? How many years you've been in the game?
I took Rich Walker's class and back to stand-up university back in June of 2017.
So 2017. So you've been doing this
technically that's almost 5 years. But the first year I did nothing with the comedy because ironically, what happened in our family, my wife's aunt and uncle became in a situation where we became guardians and done all this other stuff. And then my brother got very sick after that. We became part of the estate there. So long story short, the first year really comedy didn't exist. So I started doing a little bit of comedy in more in 2018. I
Right.
got out. Well, you know, when you start out, what are you doing? You're doing a lot of the bringer shows. When I first started out, I was trying to do some of those open mics. I went into New York City, and I felt really out of place there. Remember I went to a mic at the club at 10:30 at night on a Monday or a Tuesday. I said, what am I schlepping into the city for here? My wife looked at me like I had three heads on my shoulder or something. You know, what are you, you're 60 something years old. Like, what are you going into the city? It's a young man's game, this and that. So I'd get in there, they'd be half stoned or half drunk. I'd get up there and they would mispronounce my name, Brian Lipinski, or whatever the heck they want to call me. And nobody's paying attention to me. After that, I'd say, you know, what the hell am I doing? I hate to say my wife was right. Then I tried again. I went into the village a few times, and people say, if you really want to get going, you got to do 4 open mics a week and this and that. Why don't you try this mic in the village, go to the Lower East Side here, go uptown. You know, I was driving into the city for a mic at the Comic Strip Live on Wednesdays. I drive in there because with the trains and everything else like that. If I missed a connection, I'd get home 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes I have problems parking and I have to circle around. I'd get dressed up and then I wouldn't get on stage. And I'd have to suck it up. And that's part of the process. You couldn't take it personally. You know?
It is tough. And yeah, like you said, there's you know, just like anything, most people that are starting something new are younger. And when you get in a little older in the game, it could be, that's another thing you fought through that is that, you know, being different in that regard. I feel that, I mean, I just turned 50, but I feel like the old guy in the room a lot of times, and it's not a great place to be all the time, but you know, but you carry with you a certain wisdom and a certain life experience, and you also could pull material from places that they can't because they haven't lived there yet.
Right.
And I always tell my kids, I go, look, I've been your age. You've never been mine.
Exactly. Yeah, I got the T-shirt. Basically.
Right.
It's interesting because I did I was fortunate enough that Gladys Simon, Gladys from Comic Strip Live.
Right. Yeah.
She's always helping people out, and she had me as her feature on her Zoom show, and there were 3 of us featuring. It was a mother and son, and then I came on, and so I was honored about that. You got a longer set, but the boy that went before me was like 8 or 9 or 10 years old. I forget how old he was, and he did like a 5-minute set. He was very good. And so when I first started my set, I said to the guy's name, I said, so and so, take a look at this. You continue like this is what you're going to look like in 20 years from now. Yeah. And you know, so
this is what comedy will do to you.
Exactly. And
I'm
I sometimes
30 years
do
old
that when I'm on stage. You know, I'll be on stage and I see a young guy with a girl. He's got a full head of hair, and I said, you know, I said, take a look at me. That's him. Or whatever it may be. I don't that down. I never talk negatively about a person. And that's an interesting thing about comedy. If you let me go one more here. You know, when you first start out, you got to do the bringer shows, and people are very excited to come and see you. And I remember I did a show at the Broadway Comedy Club, and I love that place. It was upstairs, the Red Room. It was like a Wednesday night or Tuesday night, and so I was fortunate that my wife and son decided they were going to come with me, and I brought an elderly couple friend of mine who happens to be a doctor. Okay, and so I remember it was not that many people in the audience. I think I brought 1/3 of the crowd, basically, you know. And it was one of those things where all the comics prior to me were bombing. They were awful. Just the MC was terrible. She just no energy. She was just not funny. And I remember there was a comedian on there who was not getting anywhere in his set. He looked at my elderly friends who were about 70 years old or so, and he looked at me and says, you know, your private parts have dust all over.
Right.
He was ragging on the crowd, and he said to my son, "So you look like Doogie Howser." He had nothing. He just tried to pick on the crowd. So that got nowhere. But then there was another comedian who was bombing as well. And my wife is like this, like looking at him, and he stopped and says, "Why are you laughing?" She says, "Tell me something funny. I'll laugh." And he says, "I know karate." She says, "Bring it on." So after the show, he came up to my wife and apologized. And the other comedian came up to my friends and apologized. They said, well, we just lost it that night. And my friend said, we'll laugh if you've put together something that's funny. What you saying was you were just rambling out there, weren't funny. Ironically, not that I'm patting myself on the back, I was mostly inexperienced, and I got told I was the funniest guy that night. Well, maybe because my wife told me that. I don't know, but I'm fortunate to have a wife who's very critical. So
Right. Yeah. It's
yeah,
it's important to have somebody that's gonna break down your sets with you and help you out and help, and tell you what you did good and bad. It's, you need somebody like that. Otherwise you're gonna think everything's great, or if you listen to tapes, you could tell how the crowd gauged it. But like you said, if it's a small crowd, you can't really rely on that data, but no, I think it's great that that you're out there, you're doing it. And it's not easy. It's not easy to motivate and to
yeah.
get the chops to go 4 times a week, hit the open mics, write, comedy. And then on top of that, you're getting the chills every day, 4 o'clock. Yeah, you got to work out in the morning because the physiotherapy.
You got a balanced life. You got a balanced life, and again, there are certain things that I like to use the word healthfully self. Yeah, that's my term that I like to use. There are certain things that I know that I'll get up purposely at 5 a.m. I'm a creature of habit. That's one thing that drives my wife crazy. I'm a creature of habit. I'm very regimented, structured to a fault.
Right.
The way I eat. So I'll admit to it. That's one of my issues I have to work with. Father Gahuli, maybe you can help me on those things.
Right.
But anyway, so I like to get up very early, structured. If I have my breakfast early, wait an hour. During that hour, I may get on Facebook. I may do some quick writing. If I had an inspiration, I may just do stuff on the computer. And then after an hour and a half, I'll get on my exercise machine. And usually I like to finish my exercise and stuff before the family wakes up. Sometimes in between breakfast and exercise, I'll walk the dog and feed the dog, whatever it may be. But that's my time in the morning. And I think you talk about what helps you out. Find a time. It doesn't matter if it's in the morning, evening, afternoon. That's your time. And I think that's really critical, that you become healthfully selfish. And if you buy my course, I'd be happy to autograph it.
This was great, Bruce. This is a fun conversation. I appreciate you taking the time and talking to us, letting us learn way more about you. And now look at you. You're getting ready to open up in a couple of weeks for Joe DeVito.
I don't know about that, but I'm on his card.
You're on the card. You're working the clubs. You're doing it, man. You're making it happen. I think you have a uniqueness to you, where it's your demeanor, your style of comedy, your age, everything is working for you right now. And I think you just embrace the moment, have fun with this, and keep going, man. I mean, you're kicking ass, dude. You're rocking it. Yeah, you're like one of the toughest dudes I ever met. God bless you, man.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I know you said you have the website, you have the fan page. Tell everybody how they can access that and follow you and all that stuff.
Thank you. My website is www.brucecomedy.com. And I have a lot of my posters on there from the shows. I have also, up and coming events as far as where I'm performing, whether they're Zoom or live. I have various photos on there. I actually have other things like past performances, not only on stage, but also Zoom stuff, virtual and live. I also have past podcasts that I've done and interviews. I also put a new page in. I was fortunate enough to be able to do a voiceover for a cartoon called Old Geezers.
Nice.
On that too. So I'm on that. I have a couple episodes on there. That was a lot of fun. And, I have my bio on there and some other things. And, so I've developed, I think, a nice website. I'm just trying to keep working at it. And that's another thing. I've got people have asked me, Bruce, help me build a website, do other things. I've said, it's not a question of helping you build a website. It's a question of you having to do the work.
Right.
And also maintain this. It's not like you slap something on the internet and everybody's going to gravitate to it. You want to have something that people want to gravitate to. And that's helped me get on shows too. you know, and it's very important that I can send people right there, because people say, "Oh, send me a tape." I said, "Just go to the website. You can pick and choose what you want." And so I think it is a broader picture of who I am.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Also,
Old
Facebook.
geezers.
Exactly. Facebook is Bruce Lipsky Comedy. Um, I think I have a Twitter account and an Instagram account. I know I do, but I don't know.
Oh,
You know,
Bruce Lipsky or Bruce Comedy.
exactly. Bruce Lipsky is on there somewhere. I think I also have a YouTube channel. Got-
Nice.
yeah,
Good.
and
You've been busy and you've learned and you're savvy, tech savvy on the internet. You're making it happen. You could make posters for people if they need that. You can help them out with their website if they need that. And you're also available to do stand-up comedy and you do children's
right.
shows.
Help anybody write a joke if they want, and just talk life and the voice of reason. Remember that, you know.
Yeah. The VOR.
Exactly,
There,
exactly.
there you go. Bruce, thanks so much, my friend. This has been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
pal. Appreciate that. Love you,
Got it.
Don. Thank you.
Love you too,
Yeah.
buddy. Take care.
Thank you.